So, hello, we're going to talk about the pilot.
Tom, did you like the pilot?
I thought the pilot was possibly... maybe I won't resort to doing all this thing of, it was the best series opener ever. I'm just going to say it was an absolutely fantastic opener. And I think certainly the best introduction of a companion that Stephen Moffat has done.
Yes. I mean, I think it was miles and miles above the Clara saga, which was sort of harmed by the whole back to forthness of it, and also the fact that reportedly it was quite a difficult production with Series 7, the second half. Like, there was a lot of changes that happened at very late stages. And even though we had the hook of like, well, who is this person who's lots of people? It wasn't a very interesting mystery because it could have been anything.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Anyone at home could have sat down with a pen and said, clones, it's clones. Or they could have said, it's twins, it's...
Or she is the Rani.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So...
Whatever,
and even then,
right?
Even then, within that, we still had to go through the Clara's in the present, Clara goes to the future, Clara goes to the past, Clara does something to prove herself as a companion, and we'd seen that with every other companion, right?
Well, yes, and... Yeah, that it was left entirely, I think, and this is all credit to her, it was left entirely to Jenna Coleman to make something of that, I think.
Yeah.
To give it some sense of personality.
Yeah.
I promise this is relevant, because I know we've already started talking about Clara rather than the pilot, but just to add on to what you're saying there, I was watching Robot of Sherwood recently.
Yeah.
I've been going back over some episodes of Series 8, and honestly, it astonished me when I noticed this, but if you watch Robot of Sherwood, the way Clara is written, you could actually put a little girl in her place, with all these sort of excitability and stuff, and it would make just as much sense because she's that underwritten in it.
That was strange, wasn't it? I didn't really buy a grown woman being told anywhere in time and space, and she picks her favorite Disney movie.
Yeah, I know. It's
a bit bizarre.
Okay, I don't wish to point fingers, Gatiss, but I don't know. I feel like that was as a result of there being such a complete lack of definition there. So Bill, right? What makes Bill different?
What makes her different?
Other than Pearl Mackie, who has this tremendously charming presence and an enjoyable personality. What is it, do you think, that makes Bill stand up above that?
They've put a lot of time into focusing on the relationship between them, I think. There's a lot more scenes in this series, particularly early on, which is mainly dialogue focused. And the first 4 episodes, it's pretty much all about the Doctor and Bill, and as they learn to work together. And you've got the hook of he starts off as her teacher, which is interesting and a little bit different. There's no romance between them, which is different for, I suppose, all but Donna with the companions.
Yes.
It is fresh. Yeah, it is fresher, I think.
That's interesting, what you said there, actually, because one of the comments I see recurring a lot, actually, about Bill, is people saying she is the best companion since Donna. Do you think that correlates with their sort of independence from the Doctor in the way that they act?
Yeah, I think so. I know a lot of people found Clara deeply irritating, and part of that was her cockiness. And part of that was probably the way that she was given lots and lots of great big monologues about how wonderful the Doctor is and how he's They're like best friends, super best friends, and it's a bit
nothing,
tedious.
there's nothing there.
Yeah.
As I say, it was all coming from Jenna.
Mm-hmm.
And all credit to her, because Bill, as I think you said this exact thing in your written review.
Yeah.
Bill feels like a real person, and
Yeah.
I know that what we were sold before the series started was, okay, so Bill is going to ask all these questions, and they're going to be unique questions that no one has ever thought to ask him before. And I sort of groaned because I thought, okay, is that all we can really say about
Yeah.
it? But actually, it occurred to me once I was watching it, that is all you can say, because actually so much of it does just come off so naturally on screen that it's difficult
Yeah.
to describe it any other way. And actually, the way she talks to him feels like people we know from having been through university. I don't know whether you'd agree with that.
There's no real person in life who you know well that you can sum up with a statement, is there? People are far
Precisely,
more.
and that's
People
the
are
same
far
with
more
this.
nuanced and deep than that. You can't say. I mean, you can say with Amy, oh, she's the sort of the female. Well, I don't know, whatever the opposite of a womanizer is. You know, like she's got that strong
Meninizer?
yeah, a meninizer, I suppose. Like
Let's do that.
stringing along Rory early on, and she's trying to get up with the Doctor. And then with Clara, as you say, not very. It took them a long time to find her. The Doctor, I mean, not the Doctor. Stephen Moffat describes her these days as being. She thinks that the show was about her. I don't know if you've read that, but that's what he says.
I've seen that. Yeah, no, that was him referring to Dark Water, Death in Heaven, where she starts going a bit mad, thinking she's the Doctor or whatever. Just where did that come from? Like, when was that set up?
But with Bill, I think one of the things that... Did you read what I wrote about Smile?
I think I have, but you may have to remind me
Yeah.
of what it is you're going to say.
Well, one of the things I pointed at in that is I think the Doctor and Bill are... It's shown that they think similarly, because this Doctor, the Capaldi Doctor, he's a lecturer, he's a storyteller, and in a couple of episodes, the mystery is, what's he thinking about? He says something like, "There's a magic haddock," or he gives himself the clue of bird, right? In what was it? Heaven Sent?
Yeah, it's a nice little
Yeah.
eccentricity.
Yeah,
that, isn't
and
it?
it's he's referencing stories that he knows. He's referencing legends, and the way that Bill assimilates or understands the world around her is through the stories that she reads and the television that she watches. And that's one example of how I think they are shown. Not like we're not told that they're friends, but we're shown the similarities between them.
Absolutely, and now she can come to understand the universe through the prism of the Doctor's lectures, and what a unique relationship, tutor and student. I think it's a great new spin on the Doctor-companion relationship. I mean, one of the many things Stephen Moffat doesn't get enough credit for, I don't think, is his endless creativity.
Yeah.
Because even when I look through this episode, and because we've had 10 series of new Doctor Who now, I can see echoes of previous episodes. They just sort of jump out at me like that. Like when you got that shot of the girl she fancies, the one with the star in her eye, and she's standing underneath a tree. It's a beautiful shot, actually, very eerie.
Yeah.
She's standing underneath a tree in the mist at night, and she's dripping with water. She's drenched. Very Waters of Mars. And when she speaks back to her, that's very Midnight. So these things have echoes, but there are these new, unique ways of doing it, especially with the, the advance of CGI and such. I imagine, the effects in the puddle, I just thought were fantastic.
Yeah, I think every episode in this series has elements that we've seen before, and I'll maybe point them out as we go through the different episodes. In this one, as you say, there's the alien who repeats what you say as a way of learning. There's the water monster concept. So what this series feels like to me, and we could say, well, it's just unoriginal. They're all out of ideas. But the way that they've been sort of spun into new stories, and these concepts mean different things, and they've got new spins on them. It feels more like a greatest hits album.
Yeah, it does. With a few
Yeah.
tweaks and turns that sort of make it unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can see why someone who's been working on this show for 12 years would. Well, also, I mean, might be tempted to do that. It feels like a farewell series for Moffat just as much as for Peter Capaldi.
Which is appropriate. I think we can definitely say that. Actually, I happened to watch this one with Tim, and there were, of course, jump scares involved here. In fact, more than we used to, I think, with the whole, leaping out the puddle and screaming, and Tim practically threw himself across the sofa when that happened. Yeah, I think in general the scares are quite effective. I want to just move on and talk about the chips and the fact that she's a lesbian or whatever, and how understated it is. I think you talked about that in your review as well. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a background element.
It's just as much a part of her character as it would be for anyone, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
None of the companions have been. They've all had stories, where they're attracted to someone, and that someone just happens to be men in some of them, and because it's built like they just happen to be women. I mean, I've seen a lot of comments online about, the new buzz phrase, SJW, which
I don't know many of those.
infers that the writers are just doing it to make a point, but it would be twice as unrealistic to have a character who happens to be gay not mention their, a 30-year-old woman not mention the fact that she is attracted to people.
Social justice warrior implies that she's facing some kind of obstacle to her homosexuality within the story, but that's just not the case. It implies that Doctor Who is taking on the challenge of, finally representing the. I mean, but it happens so naturally. I mean, I think these people who say these things online, they must. I don't understand why they feel so personally attacked by such a move.
Yeah, it's completely petty.
And also, with regards to the relationship between them, it's not in any way shallow, because you've got this. Despite there's only a couple of scenes these two are in, but they have such an amazing dynamic, and then it culminates in this really moving ending, which blends sci-fi and nice visuals and emotional dialogue perfectly. I thought, where she has to say goodbye to her, and it turns out that the puddle is sort of this manifestation of her need to escape. It was sort of strange combination of elements, but I think it works.
What I liked about it, so the original episode title was A Star in Her Eye, and much like Smith and Jones or Partners in Crime or most blatantly of all Rose, it's very traditional for the first episode of a companion to have a name which refers to that character. And so when you hear A Star in Her Eye, you immediately think, oh, it's Bill. She's dreaming about getting away. She's bored with her life. But so it is about her, but also more literally, it's about the girl who has a star in her eye. And through Bill's attraction to her, we see that's how we're shown that she wants to get away as well. And so again, it's about those connections between the characters, and it's a nice it's a deft writing move, I think.
It is, and it sort of exemplifies the attitude of maybe your standard first-year student who wants to explore the world and learn as much as possible about it, a love for learning, but a need to escape. I don't know, there's so many great themes in there, and despite all that, I think it's very accessible as a pilot, as it was later renamed. It's very fast-paced, but it's totally comprehensible, and it involves all sorts of elements, and nice and excitingly, at the end, you get a bit of a dose of the Daleks.
Yes, and hopefully we don't see them again.
Well, we'll see about that. they're fighting someone. I don't know. I actually wanted to just ask you this. The Daleks are in battle with some people that I don't recognise, and apparently they're from classic Doctor Who. Did that mean anything to you when you saw that?
Oh yeah, they called them Movellans.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have recognised them, because
Maybe they were just there, like just.
Yeah,
for...
I've never seen the episode they were in, and I'm about to find out what that's called. The story Destiny of the Daleks. I think it was
the one
a
with
John.
Davros in it.
Ah, is it?
Yeah, it's the second Tom Baker Davros, I think.
Right. See, I actually have seen that, but I didn't even remember them.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's a great move bringing them back. Let's see. I really loved the montage just after the opening credits, where it cuts between the Doctor talking about time as a series of moving images, and then you get all these snapshots of Bill's life. I mean, just such a great, innovative way to introduce a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was a huge fan of this. I just think to have Bill be so, like, within seconds of her opening her mouth, such an enjoyable character to watch, and doesn't quite steal the heat from the Doctor. It's like it's totally balanced.
Yes.
But then you've got all this other stuff going on where it looked as if it could be convoluted. I'm always fearful of this going into a Stephen Moffat script, as I'm sure you are as well. When you see that he's got the Daleks, puddles, a bunch of other shit, some university lectures, chips, whatever. When you see that he's put all these things in there, there's always this fear it might be this convoluted mess, but it isn't. I think it gels.
Yeah, I don't think it's convoluted. I think what I really enjoyed about having all of that and Bill's life stretched out in that montage is going into the episode, I felt like I knew her a lot better than the other companions in their first episodes. I felt like I had a really good impression of where she'd come from and who she was.
It left a mark, didn't it? You knew who this person was from the start, and I think this must be something that Stephen Moffat has taken a while to learn exactly how to do, because we were talking last time, weren't we, about Stephen Moffat's sort of difficulty with coming up with how to write a companion unless there's this time-space element that needs to be sort of overarching their story from the beginning. So you set up the companion as a mystery, right? Or as a beginning to an arc. Oh, Amy's married in all this time, or what's that all about? That left a mark in terms of, okay, what impact is this going to have on her life, and it was quite good. But the mark here was purely one of, I understand Bill now, and I want to know what she's going to do next. How are these two going to interact going forward? I already know their relationship. How will it develop? Do we have anything else we want to say about the pilot?
I've laid out some thoughts if anyone's interested. It's on a blog called Between the Frames, which is a slightly more in-depth. I've been doing blog posts on all of the episodes this year. It's like half of the enjoyment for me. Yeah. So I'd say it's a little more in depth than what I've said right now. But we
could actually. There's one thing we haven't covered. I've just realised is Nardole, and his, because until now, he's had some involvement before this, but he was sort of as an accessory. Now he's the he's the third main character. So as he's introduced in that sense, what do you make of it?
I've been loving everything about Nardole.
Me too.
Certainly since the first episode, I thought he was a really weak attempt at humour in the Christmas special, which he just, by which I mean the Husbands of River Song. But you've kind of just got to shrug that off because,
he's kind of Bumbly Man number 2,
It's a Christmas special. It's meant to be broad. I didn't find anything he did or said there particularly funny, but it's meant to be for the whole family. It's meant to be for everyone who's
precisely
Christmas Day. I think what they've done really well ever since the end of the Christmas special last year, which was the Doctor Mysterio. when he had that speech about how the Doctor was hurting because he was missing River Song, I felt there was a real impression of the potential for him there. And now, even though he doesn't always make me laugh, I think they're playing very well the combination of the bumbling side of him, but also the implications that he's had a lot more experience, he's a lot more world weary than he appears originally, and that's quite intriguing.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. He's a unique. I really liked what you wrote about how he has control over the Doctor. He's sort of his nanny almost. Like, don't go doing things that are dangerous now. You know, that sort of thing.
I think it's a really interesting dynamic between them, where he's always telling the Doctor not to do things, so he is in control of the Doctor, but the Doctor's his boss. And that's the sort of way that they play with power. I mean, it's just an interesting relationship that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, I mean, Nardole is like the Doctor's tutor, in a sense. I mean, if we think of other male companions like Wilf, Rory, Mickey, whatever, the Doctor's always the alpha.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfadingly. And here you've got someone else essentially being the alpha, in the strangest form of Matt Lucas.
Yeah. I mean, I say the Doctor's the alpha, but Nardole has control as well. So it's different. Different type of control.
Alright, well that I think covers it for the pilot. We'll be back next time to review Smile.